I click the links to get the links to the other video platforms and the other ways to get a hold of me. So let me just make a prediction here. First of all, this person is completely nuts. So people are arguing. Immediately this comes out. It's like, oh, they're left wing, they're right wing. It looks like they're left wing. There's a picture of them wearing a Trump flag, but it looks like they're mocking Trump. And they did a bunch of other. We'll get into it in a sec. But this person is just way whacked out. Like hearing voices type of whacked out, and they have a Democratic Socialist rose tattoo. And if you're not on Twitter, usually the red rose is a socialist sign. But this is like to argue that this guy's left or right. He's out of his mind. Like obvious cry for help for a long time coming. You go, oh, he was on the FBI watch list or FBI radar. It's like, yeah, well. You know, there's not much you can do about it. The guy has free speech, anything, as long as he's not making active threats, there's not much you can do. It's like the guy's mentally ill. Yeah, well, that's part of living in a low trust society. There's just not much you can do about this kind of stuff. What unfortunately it means is with stuff like Waukesha happens. So what happens after that is like if they have a parade, you're going to have cars block off both sections of the parade route because you got to prevent a Waukesha type event from happening, or an event like this. Anytime time you've got a large group of people who are doing something in public, you're going to need counter sniper teams, which is, guys on rooftops with binoculars and their own 30-06 to watch for other guys on rooftops. That's just part and parcel of living in a low trust society with no mental health system in place. Now, people are talking about glowing from orbit. Oh yeah, for sure. In the sense, not in the sense that like somebody is putting a tiny speaker in his room and broadcasting to him to get him to do some kind of MK Ultra type of stuff. Not so much, that's a little bit of a stretch. More like the government takes advantage of bad situations where they allow catch and release throughout America. They allow crime to go unpunished, so you get more crime, and they use that. You go, okay, so you got guys like George Floyd. He went to prison for 5 years for an armed home invasion. And I look at that and I think about that and I think, wait a minute. That dude should be 50 years in prison, if not life, for home invasion. You did a home invasion. That should be one of the most serious things you could possibly do. 5 years in prison is insane. What happens when that guy gets out of prison? Oh, he continues on to his life of crime. So they continue to do that because they want things to get so bad. They want to get rid of the Second Amendment, and then they get rid of the First Amendment, the Fourth, the Fifth Amendment, and the Eighth Amendment, and all the other amendments that they want to get rid of. Any civil liberties they want to get rid of, because they want a militarized police, and they want a police state, and they also want one centralized authority, federal power, because globalists know, little New World Order, one world government, they know it's easier to subvert and control one group, one federal power than it is to try to control 10,000 different sheriff's departments across. Sheriffs are elected and state police are not. We're like, we want decentralized power. We want sheriffs. It's harder to control that. It's harder to control 50 states. It's harder to control all these different decentralized powers and groups. That's why they want there. That's why like you've got cases where somebody commits the taking of a life and they've get like 6 years in prison for a gangbanger deleting another gangbanger. Like, yeah, he was sentenced to 23 years, and then it was good behavior, and it came off to like under 10 years. Like, that's somebody. So you put somebody in prison for murder, and they got like 10 years. They served 10 years. So what happens when he gets out and he commits it again? Oh yeah, he does it again. This time he got 17 years. That's insane. Yeah, what they're doing this criminal justice reform, they're doing this all on purpose. 99% of these people are very, very bad people who very much need structure and consequences, and they don't have any. The state is doing that on purpose. So when they say this all glows, yeah, in that sense, it glows in that sense because they know if they get crime so bad they can enact. Like, oh well, the police are inept. They go to a school and they sit around outside. We need like one federal police. It's like, oh, that's so you can subvert and control it and have just the most brutal militarized police force on earth because it's going to be controlled by one central authority. Yeah, that's the NWO type of stuff they're talking about. That's why it's catch and release, and that's why they go, oh, listen, we're going to have to do something about the Second Amendment. This crime is just off the hook. It's like Detroit, Chicago, Oakland, LA, San Francisco, San Jose, Miami, Dallas, all these cities are off the hook with insane violence because you're putting one, it's catch and release. You're not even putting people in prison for the most serious offenses. You might put somebody in prison for a few years, but George Floyd, 5 years for a home invasion. And then he got out and continued to commit a life of crime. You got people in Chicago and the various cities who are going in and getting out on a GPS monitor and continuing to commit crimes while on a GPS monitor. That's a nation that is designed to fail, because you've got a bunch of globalist attorneys and judges who are literally appointed by Soros. They know the founding fathers never envisioned that we would tolerate a Soros type of character or somebody behind the scenes like that putting district attorneys in office. They couldn't possibly envision outside machinations. Yeah, they could envision that, but they never envisioned that we would sit still for it and not somehow outlaw it. But it's like, how do you get subverted? Slowly, then all at once. That's why they're not proud. That's why everything is catch and release, because they want to use it as a cause to take away the Second Amendment, and eventually they will. Because as the country's population changes, you get groups of people who are coming in who are very comfortable with a socialist state, with government oversight, with giving up civil liberties. So eventually it's going to happen, unless you kind of do something now, like a move to split apart to like a 50 states, to get away from the federal model and go back to 50 states, or go back to regions, go back to smaller decentralized power. So in the sense, yes, it glows like that. They want crime to get so bad to, I think it's the Hegelian dialectic. They set up the situation where they get you so scared and so nervous that you'll take anything to go, oh, we're going to have to do something. Fine, take the Second Amendment away. It's like, so now the state's in charge, and the state's run by the worst people on earth. It's run by, the globalists you see in office now. Though I don't know how eager people are right now to lose the Second Amendment, because they look at like what's happening, and you're like, oh, so the police won't protect you. They're there like 20 minutes later or an hour later. They're not going to save you, and you've got BLM riots. So I don't know how many people are to. We'll see what 2022 and 2024 brings in the election. If people are still going to vote blue, no matter who. We'll see. So when stuff like this, they go, yeah, it's on the FBI radar. It was known to the FBI, or it was on our radar. And you're like, oh, well, one, there's not a whole lot they could do about it. And you go, oh, what about mental health services in America? Oh, for some reason, America doesn't seem to have very much in the way of mental health services. Why? Well, that's part of glowing from orbit. They're setting everything up to fail as hard as possible. It's like, yes, there should be much more. We have taxes to give billions and billions of dollars to foreign countries, but we don't have mental health services in America. Or we don't have. We've got homeless tent cities in America, but you're giving billions of dollars to foreign countries. Nobody stops. None of our representatives, none of those 535 people in Washington stop and say, wait a minute, hold on a minute. We're giving each of these countries billions of dollars of taxpayer money. It's not government money, it's taxpayer money. And we've got homeless tent cities in America. And we've got clear mental health issues where we need, those billions of dollars should go into mental hospitals in every state. Clearly, that would be a good use of the billions of dollars, instead of giving it to Ukraine or all these other foreign countries. Why don't you spend it? Why don't you spend the taxpayer dollars in America for mental health services, or just tax the people less? If you have money sufficient to give to foreign nations, you give like Israel $6 billion here in just cold hard cash. That's insane. If you have that much excess taxpayer money, then cut taxes. Clearly the government's too big. I think people are slowly kind of catching on board to this like growing insane federal power, especially with the recent Supreme Court decisions. They're kind of giving you a little clue that it's time to dial back the Fed, and if the Supreme Court's the one to do it, it's like, yeah, we should have been doing this for years. Our 535 representatives should have been doing this. Gee, why didn't you guys, and this is a left-wing perspective for them, they go, oh, why didn't you guys act on Roe v. Wade? Why didn't you put something into law? You had 50 years. Hello? Hey, guys, ask a question. Can I get a response on that? And all the Democrats are looking around like, yeah, we didn't codify any law on that. Kind of weird. So it's a states issue now. It's like, oh yeah, the Democrats are I'm obviously on the right on most issues, but the Democrats are slowly learning like, oh, those aren't our representatives either. It's like the right wing is learning and the left wing is learning that, oh, none of those people in office, those Nancy Pelosi's and all those other Bernie Sanders, all those people who are worth, Feinstein is worth $87 million, Nancy Pelosi's worth $140 million. There's people in office, Democrats, this guy listed a bunch of Democrats, and I'm sure it's the same for Republicans, don't get me wrong. There's one guy who's worth like $250 million, and there's plenty of people who are worth about $100 million. There are representatives, senators in Congress, worth $100 million. You get that and you go like, you You didn't get that. You didn't get that money honestly, Nancy Pelosi. You got that for insider trading, and nobody said shit for the past 30 years. That's insane. That's a country it's just committing suicide. Nobody wants to stand up and say, hey, maybe people shouldn't profit off of insider trading. Maybe we shouldn't have Congress representatives. They're not leaders. They're fucking representatives. Maybe we shouldn't have representatives who are worth that much. And you know what part of the humiliation ritual is? Part of the just bending you over and laughing at you is that they vote themselves raises every few years. I don't know what their salaries are now. And it's like, the reason that's it's part of a humiliation ritual is because, one, most of these people are independently wealthy. Not all of them, but they're always going to have speakers, speaking positions after the gig. They're always going to get parlayed into industry or into some corporate blue chip company. They're going to get something after Congress, even if it's working for a political action committee for a very decent living, or they're going to write books. They're going to have something. It's like, but they vote themselves salary increases every few years, and they give themselves all these perks. And you look at them, and you're like, wait a minute, that seems like part of a humiliation ritual to just laugh at the people you're supposed to represent. It's like you just give yourself salary increases every year when you really don't need it. And in fact, like on principle, you should be dialing back the salary because you know you're going to get paid after office. Hey, gee, how come nobody put in term limits? I see I've gotten off a little bit off tangent. So let me keep you up to date on this. So this is the left wing, right wing, either side saying is the opposite. This guy's a screw. It doesn't matter. He's got ties to socialist, progressive, Antifa, and the occult. He's probably going to turn out to be a left wing guy. He's got facial tattoos, colored hair, piercings, and a rose tattoo on his neck. That's not. By definition, that's not a conservative, right? Not very many conservatives dye their hair and have facial tattoos. Tattoos, yes. Face tattoos, not so much. So more and more is it like the media came out immediately and tried to say he's a MAGA guy because there's a picture of him in a MAGA flag. The thing is, this dude is just, he's nuts. He's like clearly had all the warning signs there. In fact, he had a YouTube channel with like 42,000 views where he something where he was kind of hinting where he was, in what direction he was going with, setting up future bad acts. And it's like, so YouTube didn't kick that channel off. It kicks off like Red Ice gets kicked off, or there's a bunch of right wing guys who go like James Alsop and I don't know, Baked a Lot. Like I don't know if those are right wing guys, but there was like all these Stefan Molyneux and Alex Jones, and there's probably like 100 vaguely right wing channels that all got kicked off. And like, so you kick off those channels, but like who was that recent subway shooter, that black guy who went crazy? I don't think he actually killed anyone because he didn't hit like center mass. That guy had a bunch of weird videos on YouTube where he's talking about like black power and black supremacy and black hate, separatist groups and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, well, the soft bigotry of expectation says that we don't take these type of videos seriously. We only take white people seriously. Oh, FBI. The FBI itself glows, in case you haven't noticed. Yes, the FBI is completely subverted. Absolutely. The FBI catches the CIA soliciting underage children for illicit acts. It's like, oh, at least that made it to the public, so I guess not all the FBI is bad. Anyway, so this guy's got ties to Antifa, and he's dressed up in black bloc, and he's got a Rose City tattoo. There's a one, and then he had this. I think this was his video. So it's like a suicide by cop. That's how he envisioned, I guess, going him doing something horrific. And I don't know who the victims are. I'm guessing they were fair-skinned people who looked like him. I'm not sure exactly their ethnicity or if it matters. But I mean, anyone who's willing to take out children is somebody who's just off the deep end. They have very little contact with reality. Because, for political purposes, the red team might go after the blue team's adults, but, most humans have a kind of a hesitation at hurting children because they're just not involved in something. So that kind of gives you the indicator that the dude's, I don't know, like to say he's left wing or right wing, he's just so far off the deep end. It's kind of pointless to even, I think he's on the left wing, but it's like, it doesn't matter. This is somebody that, I want to say the state failed. We failed because, like, it's not about, they want red flag laws as much as possible because they hate the Second Amendment. Because they know once they get rid of the Second Amendment, they can do anything they want to you. And they will. These are the worst people. These are globalist Bolsheviks. Look at the history of Bolshevism. These are what they have planned. What's the Holodomor? in the Ukraine, the starvation, they have that planned in America. Like, why do you think all this stuff is burning down? Like, yeah, no, it burns down every food processing plants. They burn down every year. Really? Around the world? Everywhere? Well, it seems like there's a lot of them. It's probably just a harebrained conspiracy theory. So they plan all this kind of stuff. You're like, oh, there's no mental health services. Oh, there's catch and release. Oh, so it's like you set the conditions for crime to increase at this exponential level for people, groups of people who need structure. They need external control, like Detroit, Chicago. They need structure, and you go, oh well, Hart-Celler Act 1965 will open the borders to replace the patriarchy, to destroy the patriarchy. It's like, oh, so what happens to the families for all groups of people? It's like black, white, Latino. What happens to the family, the American family? Oh, it gets destroyed because you've undercut the lower income breadwinner, and you've made him useless. Oh, so that you destroyed the patriarchy, yeah, but you also destroyed the family. Oh, so feminism and the creation of the welfare state, what happened? Oh, you made the taxpayer the father figure, the patriarchal figure is now the taxpayer. So what happened to the family? Oh, you destroyed the family. Oh, so in America, the white family has got like a 75% marriage rate with children. Latinos about half and half, and black families about a quarter. So and actually, the greatest increase in bastard children is among the white family. So the most harm the Hart-Celler Act, the creation of the welfare state, feminism, socialism, all these 60s globalist talking points, it actually hurt the white family more. But you're seeing more malum and say behavior in the non-European American family because of other different reasons I can't go into on YouTube. But all the consequences of that behavior, they set up all this stuff in the 60s, the creation of the welfare state, and thank you, Emanuel Celler, 1964, 1965 Hart-Celler Act. Destroy the patriarchy, destroy the family, destroy America. It took 50 years, but it's like, look around, what you see now, you see complete breakdown of law and order. And somewhere in was it San Jose over the past weekend, there's the street sideshow, and the police are trying to round everyone up, and they're throwing bottles at the police and firing fireworks off the police. It's like, it looks like, and they started a fire. They burned a bunch of electronic scooters in the middle of the intersection. Like, that looks like a complete breakdown of law and order. It looks like a third world city. Yeah, it is. But it's not just like, people saw the 2020 kind of breakdown, and they go, oh, this all happened all at once. No, man, this was like 50, 60 years in the happenings, in the planning. It takes a long time for the fruit of this poison tree to fully ripen, and you're seeing it now. And holy cow, it's only going to get worse. So it's probably time for you to get to know your neighbors, get a little in-group preference, to start clubs and organizations. I mean, what's the Second Amendment? It's not just to keep and bear arms, but it's also a militia. Anyway, so this guy's a screw. I think the Trump thing is him mocking Trump. He's I don't know what that symbolism of this, the hashtag looks like a hashtag symbol. How was that? I don't know. I don't know what it means. But I mean, he's out of his mind. But he looks like your standard Antifa soy boy. The thing is, like, all these guys lately have been committing all these kind of. And I don't know if the Antifa is. I guess if that's in his, that must be in it. Oh, it's his Twitter. Okay, so he's definitely Antifa. But he's just a screw. Like, so the other thing I say that glows is the stochastic terrorism, which is what Maxine Waters and a bunch of other AOC. They were saying a bunch of stuff about, you get in their face, you push back, just this real hyperbolic, inflammatory language to say, the media has been calling Trump and, basket of the plurals, calling Trump and the people who voted for Trump. Trump's just a milquetoast, middle of the road politician for any political party. He's not a far right guy at all. Like, he doesn't have any far right policies, but they're using this inflammatory language to say that he's some kind of monster and that you got to stop him at all costs, and anyone who supports him, and white people bad. It's like, so that's called stochastic terrorism. So you see a lot of attacks, though oddly enough it seems to have backfired, because you see a lot more attacks on Asians now. But that might have had something to do with the Wu flu. I'm not exactly sure why the recent Asian stuff has picked up so much. But that's called stochastic terrorism, where you're putting it out in the universe, and you're hoping that a mentally ill person will pick up on it. And to be fair, the one time I saw it and I noticed it a long time ago, and I thought it was chicken shit, was when someone on the right did it. They did it with an abortion issue, and they held up a sign, and they're naming like an abortion doctor, and he had like 2 O's in his name, and they put crosshatches on the O's. To, you know, they're telling a crazy person, like, this guy's a target this guy. It's like, I thought that's such a chicken shit to think. And that was a guy on the right wing, presumably on the right wing, trying to do that. I'm like, listen, if you want to go do something, you do something yourself. Don't try to get a crazy person to do your work for you. You get in their face, you push back on them. If they're at restaurants, it's like, how did Maxine Waters get in office? Oh, well, everyone's got the vote. Thanks 19th Amendment. Yeah, the 19th Amendment was a mistake. A bunch of those amendments were a mistake, and I don't know, maybe the Supreme Court will go, yeah, hey, the 14th Amendment, everything after the 14th Amendment needs to be revisited because it might not be valid. Oh, okay, well, at that point, let's just have the civil dissolution. Because, you know, at this point, I don't think anyone's going to go to war because there's no issue of slavery to go to war over. It's like, oh, yeah, we got a bunch of states, they want to get together and just split apart. It's like, okay, well, do we want to stop them? What's to fight over? If you have 3/4 of the country who wants to go be a conservative nation, and then the coastal regions want to be left-wing nations, like, it's not worth going to war to stop states from separating out, because there's really no cause of war to go to war over, because there's no 13th Amendment issue. It's just, you got just irreconcilable differences between the right and the left. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next episode.